You know what's interesting? The person who let you go, they're not okay. They want you to think they are. Their Instagram looks fine. Their stories look fine. They've probably even sent you a, "Hey, hope you're doing well" text at 11:47 p.m. on a random Tuesday, like that's a normal thing people just casually do. But here's what nobody tells you, and what I'm going to break down for you today. There are very specific, very telling signs that someone who walked out of your life or pushed you out of theirs is quietly sitting in the wreckage of that decision, and not just feeling a little bad about it, actually regretting it deeply, in the way that doesn't go away when they scroll past your name. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what's happening inside the mind of someone who regrets losing you, why they take so long to admit it, what their behavior looks like when the regret is real versus when it's just ego, and most importantly, what you should do with all of it. Because knowing they regret it is one thing. Knowing what to do with that information, that's where everything changes. Let's get into it. First, I want you to really sit with something for a second. Think about the person who left, or the person who let the connection fade, or the one who said they didn't want this and then disappeared. Now think about the last few weeks. Has anything felt off? Like they've been hovering? Like they suddenly care about what you're doing? Or they've been showing up in small, strange ways that don't quite make sense given where things ended? That's not a coincidence, and it's not in your head. Here's the psychological truth that most relationship advice completely glosses over. Regret is not instant. It doesn't arrive the day after a breakup or the moment they close the door. Regret is slow. It builds. It compounds. It sneaks up on people when they're in the middle of their new life, the life they thought they wanted, and they suddenly realize something is missing, and what's missing is you. But here's the thing about people who regret losing someone. They almost never just come out and say it. Why? Because saying it out loud means admitting they were wrong, and admitting they were wrong means being vulnerable in the exact same way that scared them when they were with you. So instead, they do something far more revealing. They show it in their behavior, in patterns you can learn to read. So let's talk about those patterns. The first thing that happens when someone genuinely regrets losing you is that they start finding reasons to exist in your orbit. Notice I didn't say they reach out dramatically. I said they find reasons. There's a difference. A dramatic reach out is easy to dismiss. Oh, they were drunk. Oh, they were bored. Oh, they just wanted attention. But finding reasons is more calculated, more conscious, more telling. What does this look like? They watch every single one of your stories. Every one. Not occasionally. Not when something catches their eye. Every one. Because your stories are the window into your current life, and they are hooked on that window in a way they probably don't even fully admit to themselves. They comment on things from months ago on your social media, a photo that's been sitting there for ages, and out of nowhere, there's a reaction, or a comment, or a reply. They bring up mutual friends more than necessary. They text those mutual friends questions about you that are framed as just asking, but are clearly not just asking. They create reasons to be in your presence, events, group settings, running into you in places they know you'll be. And here's the specific one that always gives it away. They make contact about something low stakes and inconsequential. They send you an article they thought you'd find interesting. They tag you in a meme. They ask a random question they could have easily Googled. These aren't accidental moments of connection. These are engineered ones. These are someone trying to create a thread, even the thinnest one, because they are not ready to be completely gone from your life. The second pattern is what I call the quality broadcast. Once someone realizes they made a mistake in losing you, something interesting happens. They suddenly need you to know they're doing well, excessively well. They post more. They look happier online than they've ever looked. They start showing up at events, in group photos, looking put together and living their best life. And from the outside, someone might look at this and say, "See, they're fine. They've moved on. Stop reading into it." But here's what that person misses. There is a very specific difference between someone who is actually happy and someone who is performing happiness for an audience of one. When someone is genuinely thriving after a breakup or after losing someone, they tend to go quiet in a particular way. They're busy living. When someone is performing, they're loud. They want you to see it. They need you to see it. The quality broadcast is a person saying, without saying it, look what you're missing. And the reason they need you to see what you're missing is because they already know what they're missing. They need to create the illusion that the score is even, that you're both missing something equal. But it's not equal. They made the move that led to the loss. And that lives in them in a way that no amount of curated Instagram posts can touch. Pay attention to who seems to need you to believe they're fine. Because truly fine people don't need you to believe anything. Third pattern, they rewrite history in your favor. This one is subtle, but it is one of the most powerful indicators of genuine regret. When someone loses you and doesn't care, they remember your relationship or your connection through a lens of justification. They focus on the arguments, the incompatibilities, the reasons it didn't work. They make peace with the loss by making the loss make sense. But when someone regrets losing you, the opposite happens. They start remembering the good things, the specific things, the things that made you irreplaceable. And then, and this is the part that will come up in conversations, in texts, in moments when their guard is down, they reference those memories. They bring up specific moments you shared. They say things like, remember when we used to, or I was thinking about that time you, or they mention something you said to them a long time ago in a way that makes it clear they have kept it. People don't carry the memories of people they're glad to be rid of. They carry the memories of people they wish they hadn't lost. And when someone who hurt you or left you starts bringing those memories up unprompted, that's not nostalgia for the sake of it. That is the mind of someone trying to build a bridge back to something they understand now that they shouldn't have walked away from. Now, I want to pause here for a moment and say something important, something a lot of videos like this one won't say, because I think you need to hear it. Recognizing that someone regrets losing you is not the same as knowing what to do about it. And feeling validated by their regret, as good as that validation feels, is not a plan. So as we keep going, I want you to hold both things at once. Yes, it's real that they regret it. And also, your next move matters more than their regret does. We'll come back to that. Keep going. Fourth pattern, they become irrationally interested in who you're talking to. This is one that people dismiss as jealousy, and it is jealousy. But jealousy coming from who? From someone who lost you and is now watching from the sidelines, while the possibility of someone else winning what they threw away becomes more and more real. Here's what this looks like. They ask mutual friends if you're seeing someone. They pay unusually close attention to any new person appearing in your life, following them, looking them up, asking about them in ways that go way beyond casual curiosity. If you post something with someone new or ambiguous, they feel it. And sometimes they can't help but react to it. A like that comes too fast. A comment that seems fine on the surface but lands strange. A text from them that arrives suspiciously soon after a particular post of yours. And here's the version that really gives it away. If they're still in any kind of contact with you and someone new enters your life, their energy shifts. They become warmer, more available, more interested in you specifically. Because nothing activates regret like the proximity of replacement. I'm not telling you to use this as a tool. I'm telling you it's a signal. When someone who walked away from you suddenly has an opinion about who's walking toward you, they have answered their own question about whether they made the right decision. Fifth pattern, they reach out at the wrong times in the right ways. Let me explain what I mean by that. The wrong times are the late nights, the holidays, the anniversaries, the random Tuesdays that happen to align with something that reminded them of you. These are the moments when the guard is down, when the performance of being fine gets too heavy to hold up, and something slips through. But the right ways, this is what separates a regretful person from just a bored or lonely one. The right ways means they reach out with substance. They ask about something specific to your life. They reference something personal and meaningful. They write something that took thought. They call instead of text. They say something that lands in a way that makes you realize they've been thinking about this for a while, not just in the last 5 minutes before they hit send. When someone reaches out at a vulnerable moment but with genuine effort, that's not convenience. That's someone who has been holding something and finally let a little of it out. That's someone who is, in their own slow and frightened way, beginning to admit the thing they've been afraid to admit. And sometimes the reach out is even simpler than that. Sometimes it's just, hey, but the way it lands, the timing, the fact that it came at all, you know, somewhere in your body, you know, and we're going to talk about trusting that in a minute. Sixth pattern, they talk about who they were in the relationship differently now. This is one that only comes through in real conversations, not texts, not social media, but actual back and forth exchanges where you're in each other's presence in some form. And what you'll notice is that the way they talk about themselves in the context of what happened has quietly shifted. In the beginning, after the loss, after the end, after whatever happened, people who caused the pain tend to justify themselves. They explain their reasons, they defend their decisions, they frame the story in a way that protects them from being the villain. This is human, this is ego preservation, it's normal. But over time, when the regret has had enough space to grow and they've had enough silence to actually sit with what they did, that justification starts to crack. And you'll catch glimpses of it. A moment where they say, I wasn't in a good place then and I didn't handle it right. A moment where they look back on something they did and call it what it actually was. A moment where, instead of explaining why they did what they did, they just acknowledge that it hurt you, without qualifiers, without but. That shift, from self-defense to self-accountability, is not something people do casually. It costs something. It means they've thought about it long enough and hard enough that the story they were telling themselves stopped holding up. And the new story they're beginning to tell, it's one where you deserved better than what they gave you, which means they now know what they had, which means they now know what they lost. Seventh pattern. Their effort suddenly matches what it should have been all along. Here's one of the most quietly devastating patterns of regret. When someone loses you and begins to realize it, they start doing the things they should have done when they had you. They become the version of themselves you needed them to be, attentive, present, communicative, consistent, but they're doing it now, after. When the context has changed, they reply faster, they ask better questions, they show up more fully, they're less distracted. If there's any form of contact still happening between you, you'll notice it. And it's bittersweet in a way that's hard to put into words because a part of you will recognize it as what you always wanted, and another part of you will understand that this is what the loss taught them. People often say, why couldn't they just do this when we were together? And the honest answer is, because they didn't yet understand what losing you would cost them. Now they do. And now the effort that should have come naturally is coming desperately. Because desperation is the cousin of regret. And regret, in this form, looks a lot like love that got too loud too late. Okay, now we need to talk about the part of this that most people skip. And it's the most important part. They regret losing you. Let's say that's true. Let's say you've seen all of these signs and you know, in that gut-level way you trust, that this person is sitting in the weight of what they gave up. What do you do? Because here's where people make the most critical mistake. They either swing hard in one direction, rush back in because being chosen again feels like healing, or they swing hard in the other, shut it all the way down and treat the regret like a trophy they've already claimed and moved past. Both of those are reactions, and reactions give your power away. What I want to give you instead is a response, a conscious, considered, completely grounded in who you are response. Step one of that response is sitting with the truth that someone regretting losing you does not automatically mean they have changed. Regret is emotional, change is behavioral. Regret happens in the feelings, change happens in the patterns. A person can be deeply, genuinely sorry for losing you and still be the exact same person who couldn't give you what you needed. Regret doesn't automatically install the growth. Time does, work does, self-awareness does, suffering does sometimes. So before you do anything else, You have to ask yourself honestly, what is it that I actually want here? Not what feels good, not what would feel like winning, not what the part of you that still has feelings for them is lobbying for. What do you actually want from a grounded and self-respecting place? Because if what you want is closure, their regret can give you that. You don't need them to say it out loud. You already know. You can close the chapter with that knowledge and move forward without needing a speech from them. If what you want is to rebuild something, to see if the person who lost you has become someone who could keep you, that's a different path. And it requires not rushing. It requires watching over time whether their behavior matches their apparent regret. Regret expressed is a first step. Regret that transforms into consistent change is the only thing worth trusting. And if what you want is space, space from the confusion, space from the push-pull, space from the hovering and the breadcrumbing and the orbit maintenance, then protecting that space is your right. The fact that they regret losing you does not give them access to your healing. They don't get to manage how you process what happened just because they've started to feel bad about it. Here's something I want you to really hear, and I'm saying this because I think it matters more than any of the patterns I've laid out. The reason their regret feels significant is because somewhere in you, you already knew your own value. You already knew what you brought to that relationship, to that connection, to their life. And the regret confirms what you felt but maybe doubted. It says, you were right, you were worth more. You knew what you had. They didn't, until they did. That's a powerful thing to hold. But it is a weight, not just a gift. Because once you know your own worth that clearly, you can't unknow it. And you can't go back to a version of things where you're accepting less than what you know you deserve. So whatever comes next, whether that's them coming back, them staying away, you deciding to explore something again, or deciding you're completely done, let it be decided from that place. From the place of already knowing what you're worth. From the place of choosing what serves your growth, not what soothes your wounds. Because you're not just trying to be chosen by the person who didn't choose you. You're trying to choose yourself. Every day, in every decision, in how you handle their hovering and their regret and their slow admission that they made a mistake. Choosing yourself is the move, every time. Let me give you something specific and practical before we close. If this person comes back, formally, fully, with an actual conversation or attempt to reconnect, here are the 3 things worth paying attention to before you decide anything. First, do they name what they did? Not in a vague, I know things weren't perfect way, but in a specific, clear-eyed, I understand what I did way. Accountability that doesn't name the thing is not accountability, it's performance. Real accountability sounds like, I wasn't showing up the way you needed me to, I was inconsistent, and it wasn't fair to you. That's specific, that costs something. Watch for the specificity. Second, do they make an ask or do they make an offer? A person who regrets losing you and has genuinely grown will not lead with what they want. They will not come back saying, I miss you, can we talk, can we try again? Not right away, not as the first thing. A person who has actually sat in the growth that regret can produce will come back saying something closer to, I just want you to know I understand what I did. I'm not expecting anything. I just needed you to know I'm sorry. The ask comes later, if ever, and only after they've shown up differently. If the very first thing is them wanting something, the work hasn't happened yet. Third, do they respect whatever you say next? This is the one. This is the whole game. If you say you need time and they push, regret has not produced growth. If you say you're not ready and they make it about them, regret has not produced change. If you say you're not interested and they argue, the apology was not real. It was a door-opening tactic. The version of this person worth giving any thought to is the one who hears whatever you say next and actually honors it. Respect for your response is the only proof that the regret was ever really about you and not just about how losing you made them feel. One last thing, and then the close. There's something that happens to people who do the work, the internal work, the self-awareness work, the deep and uncomfortable process of growing past the patterns that cost them someone they loved. And it's this. They stop needing the person they lost to come back. Because the coming back was never really the point. The point was learning. The point was understanding what they had in you clearly enough that they never repeat the mistake with the next person, or more importantly, with themselves. The point was becoming someone worthy of the kind of love that you represent. And some of them will come back, and some of them won't, and some of you will welcome them, and some of you will close the door gently and with full peace in your chest. None of those outcomes is more correct than the others. They all have their version of rightness, their version of growth, their version of moving towards something better. What matters is not whether they come back. What matters is what you carry forward from knowing that you are valuable enough to regret. That's not nothing. That's actually everything. You didn't imagine it. You weren't too much. You weren't hard to love. You were worth keeping, and they know that now, finally, slowly, painfully, in the way that only loss teaches people what they should have already known. And you don't need their admission to be at peace with who you are and where you're going. You've known your worth this whole time. That knowledge is yours. No one gave it to you. No one can take it away, not even the person who let you go.